Amen.
What's up, guys? Alex here. I want to talk to you about mental persecution. Listen to this verse, Matthew chapter 5, 10 through 12. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they revile and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So what is mental persecution? I think a lot of times when we think that our persecution is not physical, it's not as serious or it's not as legit. Like, for example, our brothers and sisters overseas in Syria, they're going through physical persecution, physical pain, physical beating. Everyone who's going to call themselves a Christian, everyone who's going to follow Jesus is going to go through hardships. The word persecution that Jesus uses in Matthew chapter 5, it means to make one run. Persecution, mental persecution, is when someone or some situation causes you to run. Is your mind racing? Is your mind running because of how people are treating you for Jesus' sake, for righteousness' sake? You're following Jesus, you want to live according to his commandments, you want to be obedient to him, and the way that people are treating you, the way that people are speaking at you, reviling you, taunting you, is what that word means. It's causing your mind to run rapidly with anxiety, with depression, with isolation, with loneliness. Mental persecution is cunning. When something is cunning, it's deceptive. It's hard to pinpoint. It's tricky. And that's what mental persecution is. It's tricky. If you read the Gospels, you'll see Jesus being tricked by these Pharisees. They were mentally persecuting him. Eventually, they would physically persecute him, but they would do things like bring a man with a withered hand into the synagogue and say, hey, it's Sabbath, should we heal this guy? Think about what kind of situation that puts Jesus in. Jesus knows that they have this oral tradition that, quote unquote, healing on the Sabbath was a form of work in their eyes, not in God's eyes. And so he puts him in a situation where here he is in their synagogue. They're trying to trick him in front of people. His heart is broken because he wants to help this guy. Now he's feeling this deep depression and anguish because he's here to help these people. He's here to die for these people. And yet his Jewish brothers and sisters are antagonizing him, persecuting him. On the Sabbath, all this is happening in church, God's house. He is the Son of God. Talk about mental persecution. He was in situations like this all the time, guys. And you're going to be in situations too. They're cunning, they're hard to pinpoint. So what do? Sunning. Jesus is the Son of God, and even he went through it. He tells us that, blessed are you when they revile and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake, for the sake of the Son of God. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad. How? How can we rejoice and be exceedingly glad when we're being mentally persecuted? When everything around us is just causing our mind to run rapidly with intrusive thoughts, with this anxiety. Why? Your reward will be great in heaven. Those who are going to be rewarded in heaven are those who are going to be disregarded on earth, mentally persecuted on earth. This is how it's always been. You can go all the way back to the second pair of humans on the earth. Abel was the first person to be persecuted for righteousness' sake. God told Cain, his brother, I'm pleased with Abel's sacrifice. And he was like, well, I'm not pleased with him. And he killed Abel. Ever since then, those who have been living for God have been persecuted. So if that's what's happening to you, you're in good company. Rejoice and be glad because you are going to be rewarded in heaven. I want to ask you, what is your mental persecution? This is a community here on this channel, and I want to know what you're going through. The people around you in the comment sections, they want to know what you're going through. What is your mental persecution right now? And remember, if you're just being mistreated, that's different. People are sinful. People are going to mistreat people on earth all the time. But being mistreated specifically for righteousness' sake, because you live for God. This could happen in your family, it could happen in your work, it could happen anywhere. But the good news is that Jesus was mentally and physically persecuted so you would have the power to go through it and so you could have the reward to go through it. What was the reward that Jesus was looking 2, when he got mentally persecuted, it was the resurrection. It was eternity, sitting at the right hand of the Father with all authority, sitting and enjoying the love of God, the joy of God forever. He looked towards that, Hebrews tells us, and he endured the cross. Beautiful. We can do the same. Because Jesus rose, we can look to our rising when we go through mental persecution. So let me know, what is your mental persecution? And let's talk about it. Love you so much. Make sure to check out the main podcast, Amen Podcast. And if you want to support this, there's a link in the description if you want to support this channel and support Amen Podcast. But with that said, I love you, and I'll see you in the next one.
Amen.